Good morning. It's Carrie Freeman with My Left Ear, and we have video 64 today. It is November 6th. This video is called Mercurial Times. Mercurial Times. That's not an easy word to say. So my platform is My Left Ear, which means I lean towards left-leaning politics, and I call myself a change agent. I do psychic coaching, which is a special form of coaching. And if you want to ask about it, just send me an email. Email's below. I do therapeutic hypnosis, and sometimes I combine the two. And I support creative people. So all of that I do. And I do this. So this is for entertainment purposes only. I like to say that. And I'm going to start this morning with good news, because we are in Mercurial Times, but I thought everybody needed to hear some consolidated positive news. So a few days ago on Twitter, the mainstream media put out a lot of tweets indicating that Joe Biden was tanking. He's at an all-time low numbers, not ever mentioning that he came into office and took on a pandemic. It was very unfair, I thought, because no other president has entered the presidency with this kind of challenge. But here's the good news. A few days later, after those just questionable reports and tweets, a few good things happened. Democrat Michelle Wu became the first woman and Asian American to become mayor of Boston. Good work. Democrat Chantel Brown won Ohio primary over Nina Turner. And the Democratic governor, Phil Murphy from New Jersey, he was the first to ever win re-election in 44 years. It was a narrow margin, but when it's this off year, the same party people have a difficult time, and therefore we saw Terry Mcauliffe lose, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, last night, I'm so glad I didn't post yesterday, because last night the infrastructure bill actually passed. I mean, it's going to get a signature by Joe Biden. Joe Biden made a wonderful speech earlier today, this morning. Such a happy man. So much work went into this. So many people went into making this happen. And he's going to sign it in public, surrounded, but he's waiting for everybody to gather so nobody is left out. And I made a little joke, is he going to sign with a Sharpie? And I'm going to say, no, he's not going to sign with a Sharpie. You know, of course, that's what Donald Trump did. Sorry. All right. Now, we're going to move on to the Democrat who lost in Virginia, the governor's race, and that would be Terry Mcauliffe. Now, you know, I said I thought he would probably win by a very narrow margin. And then I kind of looked around, and I wasn't the only intuitive psychic who said that. Now, I'm not going to name names because it's nobody's fault. We all can be wrong. But I was sort of comforted. Oh, I wasn't alone. And then also with watching a lot of the news shows, there were other politicians who they were a little doubtful, but they said, no, I'm leaning towards Terry Mcauliffe. So I wasn't completely off. So I'm just kind of like, I'm apologizing, but I wasn't completely off. You know, you can disagree with me, but I never thought Terry Mcauliffe ran a very effective campaign. And then he did that while he and all of us were waiting for infrastructure reconciliation to pass, so he'd have something to run on. But unfortunately, I don't know who advised him, but he focused a lot on the past and on Trump. And then he made kind of a grave error by claiming kind kind of, I'm gonna, I'm not saying literally what he said, but it was kind of like, the parents shouldn't really have a say in education. Something like that, not good, because the parents are all riled, a lot of them, all riled up about the mandate and this crazy critical race theory, which doesn't even exist in schools. Doesn't exist until you get up into higher education. But young Kin lied, and he convinced all these mothers and fathers, like, he's going to get rid of that. Well, there's nothing to get rid of, people, because it's not in the school system. But there you go with the lying and the threats and the and also I sensed a little. I like Terry Mcauliffe. Okay, I voted for him. Oh, no, I didn't vote for him. I wanted him to win, of course. But I did sense a little tiny bit of maybe, I don't know, arrogance, complacency, because Kamala Harris came in, Biden came in, Obama came in, and I think maybe he thought he could ride on those coattails. But the people of Virginia had a different idea. And what's interesting is women who did not attend college generally voted for young Kin, GOP. Women who did attend college, 57% of them voted for Mcauliffe. So there you go. Now, pundits are suggesting that Virginia's win is the bellwether for future votes. Inherently, my left ear and I don't really think that's the case, and especially after the wins I just mentioned at the beginning. I'm not so sure of that at all. But you know what? I went to the runes and I asked, is this a bellwether for 22, maybe 24? Now, my left ear said no, but I went to the runes. And the first rune I got was the blank rune. And that rune is a little frustrating because it speaks to the unknowable. It speaks to both the beginning and the endings. And it does say it holds undiluted power, which is a lot of power. Undiluted power, that's dense. But it does bring up our deepest fears. So that was the first one. And you know, I do want to say, I did like 3 different runes readings for you guys. Because we are in these incredibly Mercurial times, and 1 minute they're agreeing on this, and 1 minute they're not, and 1 minute they're agreeing. And then you have someone like me and other intuitives. We have a stake in the game. We have something we want. So that will get clouded from time to time. Can't help it. But I'm trying to pull back on this. So now, the second rune about the bellwether, is it a sign? I got wholeness, the rune of wholeness, which just sounds good, doesn't it? And it is the rune of great power. It's the impulse towards self-realization. And it says, do not retreat in the face of challenge. Okay, so that's very encouraging. Now, the last rune was the rune of separation. But this rune speaks of acquisition, gains, but also separating out old paths. And it says, old skins must shed. So once again, it's not super clear, because sometimes I get a whole spread that's like, okay, throw it away, it's clear. This one, but I am leaning towards that it's not a bellwether, especially since last night. So that's where we're going. Now, young Kin distanced himself from 45, which was probably intelligent. He indicated that he'd turn over education to the parents, which that ain't gonna happen. So we got to live with young Kin, or they have to live with young Kin in Virginia, and it's disappointing, but it ain't over till it's over. The fat lady hasn't sung. That's just a famous saying. I don't like the word fat, but that means it ain't over. Now we're going to move on to the abortion issue and the Supreme Court. Now, there's two issues, cases, that's the word, and the Supreme Court took these up very quickly. Now, what's interesting to me about this is when they got the huge kickback about letting Texas do what they wanted to do with abortion, there was a lot of kickback on this. And then even some of the Supreme Court people, Amy Coney Barrett and somebody else, I can't remember, came out kind of fighting, which they really don't do. And Amy was a fool because she said, we're not partisan. Oh, please. Can we talk about dark money? Can we talk about Sheldon Whitehouse, who puts out tweets almost daily about the dark money and the Supreme Court? So let me just give you a little information. Not that I'm an attorney and I understand everything, but there's two abortion cases that are asking the Supreme Court for review. One is called Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. And it has requested a word that I just discovered, certiorari, sounds Italian, Certiorari. I looked it up. And it is a writ or an order by which a higher court reviews a decision of a lower court. So that's pretty straightforward, and we learned a new word. And then the other case is FDA versus ACOG. And they are requesting an emergency stay, and is currently in the lower court, but the Supreme Court may review this case later in the term. So I read some good material, but it was written by clearly someone on the right, but it was factual. I just took out all her little nasty, the rightist, and some of her nasty dialogue writing, and I just got to the facts. Clearly, it's impossible to predict what this conservative court would rule. My left ear and I feel they've pulled back because they got such kickback from people that it made them kind of pause and think. So we don't know whether they're going to uphold the precedent on abortion. This right-wing blogger said it's more likely the decisions and implications are as follows. So that's a little skewered, but I'm going to just share with you. It's grim. Number one, court limits legal standing to challenge abortion regulations. It goes on to say, Supreme Court decides that doctors and clinics no longer have the right to challenge abortion regulations on behalf of their patients. So they can't do third party. But it does say abortion would remain a constitutional right, but many unconstitutional abortion regulations may go unchallenged. So this is very mediocre. Now, hang on to your hats. The second possibility, and we all know this, and it's really horrible, that the court will overturn Roe v. Wade. And that would allow the states to ban abortion as they want. Many states have gestational limits, like Texas, 6 weeks, currently blocked by court orders, and would either greatly restrict or completely ban abortions. 13 states and DC protect abortions. That's all, just 13 states. Then the last. The court creates new legal standard for evaluating abortion regulations. So it says the Supreme Court may create a new legal standard that does not require states to show that the benefits outweigh the burdens to patients, as they did in prior abortion cases, like they're zipped. As a result, some abortion-specific provider laws that would have been unconstitutional under the Whole Woman's Health will now be constitutional. So some think their ruling will come sooner than later. They will not make us wait a long time. People got up and spoke to the Supreme Court, and there is a Solicitor General of the U.S. named Prelogar. I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong, but I heard her closing statements, and I have to tell you, she was unbelievably brilliant. And one of the things she did is she addressed each conservative judge and kind of smashed their position. I mean, it was, and her tone, her delivery, this woman was amazing. So she dissected their issues beautifully. Now, I went through the runes, again, just for fun. And the first rune I got was the Rune of Separation. And it sounds like not good, but it is the Rune of Acquisition. Acquisition, that means you're getting something. And it has about separating out old paths, and old skins must shed. I'm going to come back to that. The second rune, Warrior, spiritual warrior, and it's about funding a will through action. And of course, that's us, our actions. But it says stay unattached to the outcome. Okay, that's easy for you to say, runes. Not so easy for childbearing women to stay unattached. It says, let the will of heaven flow. Cut away the old and the dead. And the last one is the Rune of Initiation, and it speaks of something secret. And it says, we cannot repeat the old ways and not suffer. To me, to my left ear, it means we cannot go back and ban Roe v. Wade and not suffer. And it says the old way has to come to an end. And again, myself and my left ear feel that it's saying, just stop it. Go back to Roe v. Wade and just stop it. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of gray area, middle road. I don't know how you do a middle road with Roe v. Wade, but that's my instinct. I'm afraid of being too positive because I was pretty positive about Terry Mcauliffe. Now, we're going to move on. And this is the mercurial part. Like, I'm doing the runes for us, for you, but we are in these mercurial times where it goes up and down, yes and no. I'm going to vote for it. I'm not going to vote for it. And it's very challenging to dig into that. Now, the progressives with infrastructure and reconciliation, and we did pass infrastructure last night, and I don't remember who, maybe it's, I'm not remember who, but he said, hoping to get reconciliation voted on by November 15th. I don't think so. We don't think so, but it's a nice thought. Listen, I'll be happy. I'll be so happy if that happens. Now, the progressives wanted, some progressives, 6 progressives voted against infrastructure. And the reason is they wanted both infrastructure and reconciliation to be voted on together. It's not happening. But that's the reason. So I learned something. I think I mentioned to you, I am a little confused about Build Back Better, reconciliation, human infrastructure bill. Well, guess what? They're all the same. Let me just repeat this because you might have some of the same confusion I did. The Build Back Better, the Human Infrastructure Bill, and the Reconciliation Bill are all the same. I don't know why someone couldn't have said that, but I'm listening to one person, then I'm listening, I'm like, I am like getting dizzy. What are they talking about? So now I understand. It's going by 3 labels, and it's driving me personally a little crazy. Now, even if reconciliation passes the House, I just think the Senate it's going to be really tough because all the Republicans are, as of today, against the reconciliation, and 2 Democrats, and we know who they are, oppose it. Crichton is against Build Back Better reconciliation, and Manchin are demonstrating that the Dems cannot deliver. I mean, they're not saying that, but they're kind of acting in opposition when, in my opinion, this is really about democracy. This is like not about actually so much the ins and outs. It's about just support Biden, support democracy, or the whole United States is going to completely change for the worse. Everybody's going to hurt from that. They're not operating because, like I've said before, she's taking big money from big pharma, and Manchin is taking money from the coal industry, and they are very self-interested people. I'm going to share something. There's some facts about West Virginia, which is Manchin country. They have the lowest civilian workforce. They have the nation's highest unemployment at 7.6. Out of 1.8 million people, which is 380,000, live below the federal poverty line and earn like $24,250. The median household earns $41,000 and change. Now, Manchin lives there. These are his constituents. Manchin drives a Maserati, okay? He has a yacht. He wears these very expensive suits. He always has this perfect haircut, and he's receiving kickbacks. I just cannot say enough about this guy. I call him a narcissistic, self-dealing dandy. And dandy is kind of an old-fashioned word for like a very flamboyant, beautifully dressed, vain person. He won't have this power in 22, but he's got it now. Now, a progressive, Rashida, and I can't really pronounce her last name, so I'm just going to call her Rashida T. She said on MSNBC about a week ago, basically, we have reconciliation except for some language that needs fine-tuning. But she voted against infrastructure. So I don't know where we're at with progressives, but I believe reconciliation is going to be challenging, and I don't think it's going to happen by November 15th. I hope I'm wrong, but I did the runes. So the first rune I got was Warrior Reversed, and it speaks of danger of hasty or ill-timed action, leaking life force, meaning to me it's going to take longer. Then I got Flow. Flow is good. Flow speaks of unknown powers, unseen powers are active. So there's deals, there's talks going on that we don't know about. That's not a bad thing. That happens in politics all the time. It's a time of cleansing. And I see that the cleansing as a cooling off period. Personally, that's not what the runes say. And it speaks to satisfaction of emotional needs fulfilled. So the reconciliation actually does deal with, if it goes through, it's going to be very emotionally cleansing for people. And it has to do with reorganizing and realigning. There is a possibility, may not get done till 22, but we do have a lot of people that, Pelosi and all kinds of people that are really determined. And then Berkana. Berkana was the final rune. And Berkana is the rune of fertility. And it is the urge towards harmonizing. It's joyous deliverance. And it's an opportunity to achieve completion. Now that was the final rune, and that's really hopeful. But I'm doing the runes during Mercurial Times, and that's what I want to, share with you. Now I'm going to talk about some feedback that I got, I think after my last video. And I said, I didn't look back on it, so please forgive me. But what I did was felt worried about Bernie Sanders holding up the works and maybe sabotaging Joe. And I told you, it's not so much about sabotaging Joe. It's getting things done so we can win the next elections. I didn't bash Bernie. I just said I got feedback from 2 different subscribers, both female. And one subscriber was nasty, curt, rude, and unpleasant, and just gave me what they say, a what for. And that's the way it is. Okay, so like, whoa. Then I got another subscriber who was gracious and warm and telling me they love my left ear, but they said, please don't bash Bernie, please consider blah, blah, blah. Well, guess who I didn't answer and delete? I didn't answer nasty, rude, unpleasant. And I answered the woman who graciously gave me her point of view. And I wrote her back. And I said, thank you for sharing. I'm taking everything that you say under consideration. And frankly, I'm not always right. So if you want to get your point across in life, follow the model of the person who was appreciative and gracious but told me the truth. That keeps the doors open, generally speaking, in the world. A lesson. Now, I'm on Twitter a lot, so you pick up a lot of the waves, the way things are going, and there is tremendous right now dissatisfaction growing and growing and growing about the inaction of Merrick Garland, and that would include his testifying. And there actually now is a petition going around asking him to resign. You know what? I made a mistake today. I put in here, do the runes for Merrick Garland resigning, and I actually failed to do it. So we're going to come back to that. I don't think we're going to see it. My left ear doesn't think we're going to see a resignation anytime soon. And Joe Biden may be a little unhappy. It's hard to know. But he did say, yes, I do. I think that the insurrectionists, and I will include everybody, and he will not give Trump the courtesy. He's turning over all the archives, which some of them are incredibly damning. But Joe's not, no, we're turning it over. Merrick Garland should set up a separate committee so he just takes himself out of this whole thing. It's a mystery. A lot of brilliant attorneys are weighing in on Twitter, and I follow them, and they are so frustrated, so annoyed. So if you're frustrated and annoyed, you're not alone. Legal people are frustrated and annoyed. But like I said last time, I think the SDNY and Georgia with voting obstruction, with that phone call Trump made, are probably going to step up to the plate before the end of the year. And maybe then Garland will strap some on and move forward. Hard to know. So here's some interesting stuff. Remember Josh Hawley, little skinny, wimpy Josh Hawley, who was given the fist pump, big at the insurrection, like you go. Well, there's a huge lawsuit against him and other Republicans. Oh, it's interesting, guys. I'm just going to read this to you. The Giffords Gun Safety Organization has sued the NRA, plus suing the campaigns of U.S. Senator Josh Hawley and U.S. Rep. Matt Rosendale of Montana, alleging that they used shell corporations to improperly aid the Republican lawmakers in 2018. The suit alleges 2 NRA affiliates made up to, hold on to your hats, $35 million in illegal campaign contributions, and then coordinated efforts to get it over to the GOP Senate campaigns of Hawley, a lot of people, Rosendale, Tom Tillis, Ron Johnson, Cory Gardner, and Tom Cotton, and the ex-president. It's not looking good for these people. Not looking good for these people, and I am thrilled. So we'll watch that. A lot of, a certain amount of GOPers, especially in the House, are going to lose their position eventually, because we know that there's a certain number that are legal and were very involved in the insurrection. People aren't talking about that, but I think they're going to, drop. All of this is taking time. Now we're switching gears. We're finishing up about kindness. Well, I've been doing research about how I can get some really great professional guidance to upgrade this channel, where I set up Patreon and I go live and all kinds of things that I don't know how to do yet. I consulted with a great company in Utah, and I had conversations with 2 young guys, and I said, why don't you, go look at just so you can see who I am and what I do. And I had both of them on the phone at the same time. But the first guy said right away, how's your cat? How's Red? I went, oh my God. He goes, yeah, I have a cat. And I really got my, and I said, he's had really a good 4 days. And then I was asking him about who will help me do blah, blah, blah at your company. So, well, that's Felipe. So he gets Felipe on the phone. And Felipe, not knowing, says, I need to know how your cat is. How's Red? Another cat person. So the 3 of us talked about cats for a few minutes, and it was really cool. They have a lot to offer. It's very attractive. For me, they're very expensive. So that may have to go on the back burner till after the first of the year. But I just thought it was so cute. They weren't all business. They were like, wanted to house Red. I'll tell you about Red in a few minutes. There's some news. Now, this is another one of those teeny things that I just go, wow. I'm rushing into Ralph's, and a woman not white is coming out pushing her cart, and I kind of didn't want to get in her way, and I did this, and she said, honey, take your time. Don't worry, take your time. And I just said, that is so sweet of you. I just didn't want to get in your way. And she goes, have a good day. Lovely woman. That was the exchange. Then I go to Gelson's, which is a kind of a high-end grocery store here. I love it. And I'm around, and I see this little tiny, I'm not kidding, it was like 5'1" or 5'2", teeny thin Asian man with nail polish. And I end up getting behind him in line, just standing there, and he turns to me and he goes, hi, how are you today? But he had a thick accent, and I went, what? I didn't hear you. I didn't understand you. And because he was wearing a mask, and he goes, hi, how are you? And I went, oh, I'm fine. How are you? And I had the stuff to make a pumpkin pie. And I said, I'm making a pumpkin pie. I'm making my first pumpkin pie. And then he engaged me and said, oh, I make a brilliant banana bread. And I said, well, do you put buttermilk in it? He went, oh, no. And we chatted. He was adorable. And he was wearing a purple nail polish. Now I'm like the grocery store girl. I mean, I just have the best experiences in the grocery store. So now I go to Trader Joe's, and I just have a couple of things, wait in line, and I'm ready. It's kind of the express line, and the guy was really full of energy, and he said something about eyes, and I went, excuse me? And he goes, I was just commenting on your eyes. They just beautiful. And I went, oh, thank you. I love compliments. And he was, you do? He goes, I can't take compliments. I have a terrible time with, and I said, listen, this is all you do. So I did a little therapy on the guy who checked me out at Trader Joe's, and we bonded. And then I need help moving my sofa out of my apartment. My sister-in-law gifted me with a sofa, and this, I call this my COVID sofa, because this is where I sat for 2 years. And it has some cat scratches from Red, and I wanted to get it out. I want to get anything out that was like COVID. I want to start new. Plus, Carrie is starting a #1 year in January, which means new everything, and it's pretty exciting. So my neighbors offered to help me get the sofa down to street, and then the rescue mission will pick it up. I was having trouble finding anybody, and I did call junk removers, and they wanted like $160, and I really didn't want to spend $160. So those are my kindness stories. When I set up Patreon, I'm going to ask you guys to share those stories with me so we can trade the stories. I have plans for Patreon and sharing extra things. Now I'm going to go to the quotes. I'm working with a client with her, getting in touch with her anger and how guilt relates to anger. So I did a little research. I found a beautiful quote, and I want to share it with you because I think a lot of people struggle. It's easier to feel guilty than to get angry and express anger. I think it's very not unusual. And this person wrote, and I don't know who it was, guilt can be anger turned inward. Essentially, that when we feel guilt, it's a sugar coating on anger, and it saves us from having to taste the bitter emotion of anger. So when you get really guilty, maybe give that some thought. And I found there's articles written on this. It's called the guilt anger split, because it puts a lot of people in conflict. A little information for you. And then there's a lot of great quotes by Bette Midler out there. She's a very smart woman and clever and funny, of course. And I found this, I just thought people would read, people who don't feel they fit in or they're off in the world, like I don't belong on the planet, there's something, people don't get me. She wrote, if only I'd known my differences would be an asset, then my earlier life would have been much easier. Gosh, doesn't she speak for a lot of people? If I'd only known my differences would be an asset, then my earlier life would have been much easier. And the last one is just inspirational. It's by the author, Michael Crichton, the best-selling author, Michael Crichton. And he wrote, work inspires inspiration. Keep working. If you succeed, keep working. If you fail, keep working. If you're interested, keep working. If you're bored, keep working. I just thought that was great because sometimes people wait for inspiration to start something. No, once you start it, then the muse shows up. The inspiration is like the wind between your wings. So I really like that a lot. Now I'll tell you about Redson because people seem to be interested, and I don't like to start off my YouTube with personal stuff. Red was doing great. The last 4 or 5 days, he was acting kind of like his old self. Now, that doesn't change the fact that he has a heart murmur and he has an enlarged heart, but he was acting like his old self. It was just wonderful. In fact, yesterday, I lay down on the sofa to take a nap because I think all the stress maybe kicked in some chronic fatigue that I had a long time ago. The chronic fatigue kicked in when I had, at the tail end of my COVID 2 years ago, and it feels like it kicked in again. So sometimes, like right now, I'm like a lot of energy, but chances are I'll have to go to sleep in a couple hours. And it will pass, and I'm taking care of myself. So he even took a nap with me. We spooned. Nothing like spooning with Red, with that double coat of fur he has. And he talked to me, but then in the afternoon, he took a turn late in the day, and he started limping again. He started having trouble walking, and just like weeks ago, he'd plop down and he couldn't make progress. And it was very upsetting. I gave him a little gabapentin, which is it's made like for people, but they've discovered that cats really do well. So it calms the cat and it takes down any nerve pain. And I did it mostly to bring down his anxiety. But honestly, I looked at his right haunch and I saw it spasming. And I was like, wow. It was just spasming, and I can see that side of him moving, and I'm thinking, oh, he must be so uncomfortable. So he didn't like getting the gabapentin. I squirted it in his mouth. He didn't like that. They don't like that. But it started to calm him. But it was the first time in over a week that he didn't want to sit on the sofa with me, and he got under the couch and didn't want to come back. So I took his kitty litter into my living room so he wouldn't have to walk outside and put out effort. When I did that, he got in there and he used it. So it was kind of like, thanks, Mom. And I put a little food bowl under the sofa. He didn't apparently come out for that. Now, he came out this morning and he laid down and he was really subdued and his nose was warm. And then he disappeared again. So he's under the desk right now and I'm just letting him rest. I don't think it's a moment to panic and schlep him to the vet because that upsets him more. He has PTSD in the car. So that, we'll just keep watching him, So I appreciate your thoughts and your questions and all of that. So that was it for today. And that was my longest video. There was a lot to research. I learn a lot doing this because I have to do research to bring you things. And I want to say thank you. Thanks for all your good wishes. Thanks for your compliments. Thanks for subscribing. Anybody new, you've got to know by now, it helps me if you hit subscribe, and it helps me with YouTube if you like. So that's that. Have a wonderful weekend. Keep your fingers crossed for reconciliation. It would be phenomenal if it happened before Thanksgiving. And you could write me and go, Carrie, you were wrong. Oh, yes, I was wrong. I hope you're laughing. Anyway, with great appreciation, make peace, make memories. Oh, by the way, my neighbor who owns this ring light, who loans it to me for days on end, she's a makeup artist, special effects. So she did like 6 or 7 Halloween makeups and she borrowed the ring light back. So when she brought it back, it was really tall, like the ring was in a different, and I said, maybe that would be good. Maybe that. So I kind of kept it the height and then I leaned it in and then I found out, wow, I like that better. So if you feel like I'm at a new angle, I'm at a new angle. It was an experiment today and I kind of like it. It shows a little more of this and it helps me look up. And so that's that, just explaining. Yeah, it's a little different. All right, here we go. I love ya. Make peace, make memories, go out and be kind, look for it because it attracts more. Good evidence attracts more good evidence. Okay, here we go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.